What's going on, guys? NFL Showdown show, Rams versus 49ers, Sunday Night Football. Tyson Smith here. I'm with Ellie Hernandez doing his best horror movie impression over there in Indiana. A little bit later of a show for you tonight. Thanks for joining us, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just so everybody knows, I am not currently dying. This is a light on my face, and that's why I'm so pale. We're just getting the Halloween spirit here a little bit early. Yeah, my daughter's. I've been posting pictures of my daughter on Facebook, one of those social media sites, wearing all the Halloween clothes. So, yeah, figured I'd support her.
Bro, the fact that you have a daughter is insane. We're getting fucking old, man. What the hell is going on here? Just for some context here, Ellie and I have known each other since, I don't know, 8 years old? 1 year old? I don't remember. It's so long ago.
One of the first memories I ever have of Tyson is him wearing a Kurt Warner jersey before the Rams-Titans Super Bowl in 1999. So
there we go.
Yeah, and that's more of me just... I've done enough to my brain that's the first thing I remember. So
yeah, every morning you wake up and you think of that. That's a little fucking weird, but all right, let's go with it. So
no, that's not what I was saying. Anyways, Jesus.
So okay. Speaking of Rams, all right, let's check out what we got going on here Vegas wise. So obviously, it's nighttime right now. We're recording the show a little bit earlier than typical, so the ownership is not out yet. But that's all right. We're going to work through this together. We've got a minus 170 favorite for LA Rams, minus 3 spread with a 52 total. Now, typically, in the past, if we had a 52 total on an island game, we're looking for it's going to be high scoring. We're excited. It's going to be a lot of points going on, and it still might. But a 52 total this season is nothing to be impressed with. We don't have ownership, so I just did a sum of the total projected points from some of our favorite projections out there. And you can't read into it much, but both teams are pretty much equal when it comes to projected points. So, Ellie, what do you think about this game in general? What do you think about the spread? And are you buying the whole, 3-point underdog for San Francisco?
Am I buying it? Is that a big enough underdog? No, I don't think so. I can list more starters on the Niners than I can their injuries. Now, I don't even know if that's a good analogy or not because I'm not a Niners fan. But either way, right? I mean, I have no idea how they're going to play defense against the LA Rams. The NFC West is kind of a different division again. I mean, we're talking about, we're looking at almost like 2012 and in those years when we had multiple double-digit win teams. LA can pull that off this year. Seattle and Arizona even. Wishful thinking, of course. I'm sure you guys all have seen the Cardinals in the background there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I think LA is going to run away with this one. I don't think San Francisco has enough talent on defense right now to compete with Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, even Josh Reynolds. Like, he's their 17th string wide receiver. He still is going to have a chance to, do something. But even then, you got Gerald Everett, who's really having a pretty solid year and has been just coming out of the woodwork, right? So I don't know, man. I don't think 3-point spread against pretty much the Giants practice squad is going to work. I think there's going to be a little bit more points on the Rams side, which opens up some pretty unique opportunities when we're talking about showdown slates. So it's going to be interesting.
There's no way this line doesn't move. I mean, right?
Well, yeah.
Can you see it getting to 5? I mean, I don't see how it couldn't. I mean, San Francisco's at home, but who cares? They're both in California. There's no fans. Does it really matter? I don't think so.
So, I mean, if I was a betting man, I would say I would put money on the fact that I think the line will be 6.5 points by Sunday. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I don't want to be a full score. Unless
Yeah.
unless for whatever reason we just get projections updated by Sunday and Jimmy G is set to be Dak Prescott last week, or not
Well,
last week.
well, we. Well,
Jimmy
maybe.
G is already Dak
Yeah.
Prescott last week. We need him
Yes.
to be the week before.
Yes.
And if that
Exactly.
happens, I mean, then yeah, for sure, this line can stay at 3 points. But I don't see it. I mean, their best player is Raheem Mostert, right? You put him on any other team, he's maybe a spell back, a third down running back. I don't know.
I mean, I think Mostert's a good player. I really do. But we'll talk about salary and we'll talk about what we think, where we think the ownership will go. But I just don't think that this week Mostert is worth his salary. So let's get into it a little bit here. Let me bust open Fantasy Cruncher. And I crunched out about 500 lineups just to give you guys an idea and just to give us an idea of where the what the opto likes. And so for what surprises me, and it's obviously based on projections, is Garoppolo is in 61% of the lineups. And that's just because of his salary. So I don't think he's going to be that popular. I mean, I think DraftKings played this pretty smart because they made him priced so low that I'm thinking about playing him a lot, even though I think he sucks. But as a quarterback, he's touching the ball every time. And, he gets a quarterback sneak for a touchdown. He throws 2 touchdown passes with 200 yards. He's going to pay off his salary as compared to there's 2 or 3 guys more expensive than him this week. I think that Jimmy G is a compelling argument to get into a lot of your lineups because of his price. If he was priced where Goff is at, I don't think it's worth it for sure. We've got, obviously, I think Kittle's going to be the chalk, obviously, this week because who else is on the 49ers? The wide receivers are average at best. They're priced up, at least most of them are. I think Kittle is going to be the best option for captain. Now, you might get a lot of Goff and Cup and all that stuff, but from San Francisco, I think he's going to be the best option for captain. What do you think? Where do you think it's going to go ownership-wise this week? And then we'll jump into actual position by position and see what we're thinking there.
So if I'm being completely honest, I'm curious as to where we're gonna land on George Kittle, right? The ownership projections are going to be very important for this because his 3 games played this year, 8 points, 9.3 points, and 40.1, right? So I think given the injury situation and the inconsistent play, really just the one performance where he scored decent points, we could unlock some value by having him in the captain spot if ownership suggests it's valuable, right? Otherwise, I think he's a damn near lock. I think it depends on your game script and what you think is going to happen, of course, but I think he's pretty close to lock at 10.4K. Man, how is he not the most expensive person on the slate? I get Jared Goff.
I mean, Goff, he's played well recently and he's a quarterback. So I don't expect tight ends to be priced more than quarterbacks, which is why him being, what is it, $800 more than Jimmy G is not really that surprising because Jimmy G is not great, but he's the most expensive guy besides the quarterback this week. And I think there's a reason for that because there's no one else to throw to. And this guy absolutely crushed it 2 weeks ago. He's a name guy. Like everyone knows his name. He's won people money in the past. I think if you look at his 3 games this year, obviously he had 43 fantasy points a couple weeks ago, which is amazing. But besides that, 5 targets and 8 targets besides that game. That's not going to get it done. Now, Jimmy G, I think Jimmy G was injured for, I don't know, man. Jimmy G's injured every other week. I don't know. We'd have to look into what games he succeeded in. Jimmy G was injured during this Philadelphia game, correct? That was a Nick Mullins slash CJ Beathard game where he went off.
Yeah, that's correct.
And last week, Jimmy G was playing, and week 1 Jimmy G was playing. So, I mean, it's a small sample size. You can't really. Who knows what's going to happen with each quarterback? But I just feel like Kittle is a good option, but you could really get a lot of leverage if you had some balls and said, you know what, fuck this. I'm not playing Kittle this week, and then you just let it ride and played whoever else you wanted. Because I think you can have a unique lineup if you just leave Kittle out of it, depending on your tournament size. Let's jump in. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm looking at pricing a little bit closer right now. Pricing is kind of all over the place on this slate. It looks like they tightened up the topper end, or that was a terrible way to say
That's
that.
not English, but I know you a couple seltzers deep.
Right, yeah. So it looks like they tightened up some of the upper echelon of players here. And we'll get into it here in a second, but I'm looking here and I'm seeing some decent value that should come in pretty low owned. And if you ignore our Tennessee Titans game the other night, and go back to what was it, the Saints game, we nailed just about every aspect of that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
not to toot my own horn, but we, I mean, when we're looking at value in some of these bold calls, they're not all that bold, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Let's jump right into it. If you want to run down by position, I think we have some unique opportunities here to get different on the slate.
Yeah,
High upsides.
I think running back and tight end we can really get different for sure. So quarterback, not much to talk about here. Jared Goff. Let's just look at Jared Goff. So he's had some. I mean, he had 2 duds this year. I mean, against the Giants, that's sort of random. I mean, they won the game. Against Dallas, which is even more random, that was week 1. You would think the guy would throw for 7,000 yards, but he had just an average game, 275, no TDs, and 1 interception. I think this guy has a high ceiling. I think he's priced at the correct price. And I'm not going to avoid him at all. If he's in 80% of my lineups, then he's in 80% of my lineups. I'm okay with that. What do you think about Goff this week, man?
I mean, I agree. That's really about all I have to say on that.
Yeah, it's not a sexy play in my opinion. I mean, he could end up with 22 points and still be in the opto. I mean, it's just the way it is.
The only thing that I would point out with that, actually, I have 2 things. The first thing is if there's a lot of line movement towards the Rams, that might take me off Goff a little bit, simply because if the line moves there, then I expect them to be winning, which means probably more rush attempts.
Yeah.
The other side of that is Jimmy G is only projected for about 1.7 points less at.
Depends on where you're looking, but I mean, we're talking on some sites it's 0.02. And this is early in the week, so I think it's a canned projection and it'll get more dialed in as we move along, but that's saying a lot. That's why he's showing up in so many crunches as of now, because he's $1,200, $1,400 cheaper. He's $1,200 cheaper than Goff, but they're projected at the exact same median. So
Exactly. And so this is where it's very important to pay attention to ownership projections and, I don't know, injury news, right? What if Jimmy G loses a wide receiver, someone gets COVID, whatever it is, excuse me, that could change his projection. And based on how much he's popping in the optimal, you might be able to get some massive leverage by, spending up a little bit more and ensuring you have Jared Goff over Jimmy G. I expect Jimmy G to get a little bit more of the ownership since the line shows he's going to be down and probably having to throw the ball a little bit more to stay in the game. But at the same time, if they're staying somewhat competitive, if that line stays closer to 3 points, then I expect Jared Goff to have to throw the ball at some point. And if the ownership is skewed heavily towards Jimmy G, I think Jimmy G becomes a little bit more of a fade opportunity. And you can start jamming Jared Goff into some of your lineups. So that's
Yeah.
kind of just my take there based on wherever the ownership lands.
Keep your eye on ownership because, quarterbacks are usually in total, what would you say, 50, 60, 70% owned, depending on what the slate. But, they're usually above 40% owned.
Yeah.
And if he's below 40% owned, if he's like 10% in the captain or 12% in the captain, I don't love playing quarterbacks in the captain. But with that ownership, we've seen this guy have good games. He is a good quarterback. He's having a bad year this year. This dude was one quarter away from being a Super Bowl champion, and everyone they're just ready to get rid of him. I mean, he's been injured. He's on a junior varsity team right now.
Right.
They're calling dudes in off the street right now, and you're gonna blame him for that? Yeah, he's injury prone. Yeah, he makes mistakes, but they're putting this guy in the Sam Darnold category, and he just took his team to a fucking Super Bowl. So let's just take a deep breath, and I think
don't
that's
get me
what.
started on Sam Darnold because I disagree with anybody who's talking shit about Sam Darnold.
I agree. I totally agree. Dude, if Sam Darnold was on the 49ers right now, the 49ers would have a better record in my opinion. But what I'm saying is he's not a bust. Jimmy G, they're treating Jimmy G like he's some sort of bust, that he's like terrible.
One full season. Yeah. One full season.
All right, let me ask you this. Would you rather have Carson Wentz or Jimmy G?
Jimmy G.
Me too. All right, let's move on.
Jimmy G has 2 rings, man. I don't care what anybody says. He still has 2 rings.
It's true. It's true.
They might be backup rings, but they're rings.
It's true. It's true. All right, let's look at running backs. All right.
Okay.
So Mostert is 9,800. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, this guy has shown his ceiling. He can go off. We know that. But that was on a team that was not on his current team. The way his current team is built, he was on a good team in the 49ers. Now he's on a shitty 49ers team. If you look at he's played 3 games this year, week 1, week 2, and week 5. He's got decent numbers. Nothing's popping out. But for 9,800, that's like Alvin Kamara pricing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see how you could play it. Look, if Mostert his ownership is projected to be high, I'm just gonna X him out. Because there's other options on the same team that are better as far as value goes. What do you think about Mostert this week?
I'm actually with you on this one. I've never been a fan. I think he's one of those guys that can absolutely break Slate pretty quickly. But I'm comfortable with fading him just because he can also end up with 0 points. Think back last year, Aaron Jones, right? Aaron Jones is obviously a better running back than Raheem Mostert. Aaron Jones, I think he had a total of 10 touchdowns, but 7 of them came in like 3 games total, right? And all of his touchdowns were in 4 or 5 games total. So that's similar to what kind of performance Raheem Mostert puts out. Is yes, he might have a slate-breaking performance, but he's going to do it once or twice a season. And to be honest with you, I'm not smart enough to try to figure out what Kyle Shanahan's going to do with that offense. And I'm not smart enough to peg that 1 out of 16 chance opportunity to get Raheem Mostert. I'd rather not play him, stack both quarterbacks, and hope for a shootout on a 52-point total. So that's where I'm at with it.
I feel like Mostert needs to be around the 8,500. He needs to be under 9K. And considering his injury history, if he was in the low 8s, I think he's a great play. But this is why pricing and ownership is almost all that matters sometimes in DFS.
Well, and here's the thing, dude. You're going to have if they have 4 active running backs, they're going to use all 4 running backs. I mean, McKinnon, 1 attempt, 4 targets last week. Wilson, 1 attempt or 4 attempts, 1 target. Mostert, he didn't. Yeah, he did play 11 attempts, 3 targets. So it looks like he's getting maybe 50 to 60% of the opportunities. And to me, that's just not enough to pay 9,800 for when I can come back over here to Jimmy G, get 9,600, pay less, and literally have every offensive snap
Totally.
unless they're running
Totally.
something weird.
So let me play devil's advocate on this exact subject. Last week, they got their ass kicked by the Dolphins. Of course, he's not going to get the volume that he typically would as a running back. He's not necessarily a pass-catching running back. Jerick McKinnon and Jeff Wilson are getting those opportunities more, especially in the second half when they're getting their ass kicked. So if his ownership is low, I actually like him to pay up to be contrarian if his ownership's low. If he's the top owned quarterback, or I'm sorry, if he's the highest owned running back, I don't want anything to do with him. And I think you can once again easily get different by just fading this guy. Now, the chances that he goes off and gets 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, it could happen. It probably will happen. But I don't want to pay that much for him based on his ownership. I'll make that decision. Let's talk about Jerick McKinnon. This is I don't know, man. I like this guy. He week 4, this dude ran 41 routes. He was, and this is without Raheem Mostert, obviously. But the point is, which guy is better for this current team, and which guy are they gonna give the ball to Raheem less? Are they gonna keep McKinnon in because they're down? Who knows? But in week 4, 92% of the snaps at running back, and Jeff Wilson only got 9%. He had 8 targets in week 4. I mean, even last week he still had 4 targets. Now that makes sense because they were down a lot. But that's just things. These are things to think about. McKinnon at $2,400. The value is there. What do you think about McKinnon, and what do you think about Jeff Wilson? Which, by the way, Jeff Wilson is questionable. So keep an eye on that. If Jeff Wilson is out, McKinnon's an even better play.
Yeah, if Jeff Wilson's out, McKinnon all day at 2.5 or 2.4K.
2.4K, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, dude, we're always about these backup running backs. I love these backup running backs, probably to a fault. I mean, we talked about Latavius Murray the other day, and he kicked my ass, but he had the opportunity. These backup running backs, they're not owned. People are scared of them. People are scared to play number 1 running back and backup running back in the same lineup because it's negatively correlated. But yeah, this is a 1-game slate. It's a showdown slate. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. Honestly, my sneaky play is under wide receiver.
Okay.
But that's kind of how I roll. So
Yeah.
no, I'm right there with you. I mean, if we see that Jeff Wilson is out or inactive, then yeah, I'm gonna have some pretty heavy Jerick McKinnon exposure. And honestly, I'll probably have a little bit of Kyle Juszczyk, or however you say his name too. I mean, dude's gonna get 1 or 2 rushing attempts, and he's gonna get a target or 2.
$600 for this guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if he gets 4.5 points, I can live with it and still jam in pretty much all.
Yeah.
All the top performers.
If Jeff Wilson is out, I think Juszczyk, I don't know if that's his fucking name. I think he's a
Kyle.
Kyle. We'll call him Kyle J. Yeah, Kyle. I think ownership will rise with him because there's not a lot of value on this slate when it comes to less than $1,000. Let's jump over to the Rams backfield, and what a mess this is. I mean, Darrell Henderson had a great game last week. He was chalked the week before and absolutely destroyed people's lives. If you look at the numbers when it comes to Henderson versus Brown, let me pull these up real quick. Week 4, Malcolm Brown had 63% of the snaps to Henderson's 34%. That was when he was chalk. Week 5, Henderson had 44% of the snaps to 38% of the snaps to Malcolm Brown. And when it comes to routes run, they week 5, they were right around 13 and 15 respectively. Week 4, Malcolm Brown had 22 routes run. So, and he had 6 targets in week 4. So, to me, just looking at the pricing, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. Darrell Henderson 7,600. That's a good price. I mean, I like that price for him as a starting running back on a pretty good team that is favored. But to me, Malcolm Brown at $1,600, bro. DraftKings, are you drunk? I know he's a backup running back, but $1,600, I might just lock this guy in and just okay. All he needs is 45 yards, 5 catches, and if he falls into the end zone on accident, I'm gonna be loving my life. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not as high on Malcolm Brown as you are, but I do think he is a solid play, especially at that price. He is absolutely going to get touches, and he absolutely is going to get targets. So, I mean, at that price, really all he needs is just to hit his average score, and he'll pay off his price tag. So it's not at all a bad play. Now, I am going to hop on the other side of this, and I like Malcolm Brown, but the one thing that I think we need to account for a little bit more is the return of Cam Akers. So he is not going to get involved in the pass game really, but he is going to get the workhorse load of carries when it comes to running back or running the ball. Jesus, right? Of course, we're talking about running backs.
English, yeah.
Yeah. Look, last week, coming off an injury, he had 9 carries on 61 yards, but 6.78 yards per carry, right? I know he only had 6.1 fantasy points, but honestly, I think I'm going to be straightforward here. I think Cam Akers or Malcolm Brown probably going to be in every single one of my lineups. Actually, that might be a little bit too ballsy, but they're going to be in a very, very large majority of my lineups. I
Yeah.
think one of these two guys is going to be required. I don't think the Rams want Darrell Henderson to be their feature back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think they ever did. That's why they drafted Cam Akers. And I really think Cam Akers' yards per carry says enough for why I think we should keep an eye on him as well. But I'm with
Yeah.
you. It's between these two guys. Darrell Henderson is nice. That price tag is just a little bit too high for me.
Yeah, I actually think it's a great point bringing up Cam Akers. I kind of forgot about the guy. I know he's been hurt. He played last week. Maybe they're just easing him into it, sort of a thing, like I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that, but Cam Akers last week only got 18.5% of the snaps. He got 0 targets. He got 9 rush attempts, which is actually more than Malcolm Brown. So that's kind of interesting. That's something to keep an eye on, actually.
But remember, it's still a high risk play. If you're on FanDuel, run it. Jam Cam Akers in as much as possible. Malcolm Brown is going to get those targets too. So last week, he's averaging essentially 4 targets a game. If he catches 2 passes for 20 yards, right, he's already at a significant chance to outscore Cam Akers. So keep that in mind, right? It depends on game script. If we expect the LA to be leading if the line moves to LA's direction by a touchdown, Cam Akers. If not, if it stays close to the 3, I think Malcolm Brown might be the play.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's an interesting situation. And again, bring in ownership.
And this is another point to bring up when it comes to ownership. If you look here in this column, if you guys can see this, it's 2020 average. On the DraftKings app, there are people out there who hand build on the DraftKings app. There's a lot of people out there. And when they're trying to build, it literally shows their average for the year. That doesn't mean fucking shit. But obviously, if you're trying to decide as a casual fan between Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, and Cam Akers, you're going to pick Darrell Henderson most likely. And look at Cam Akers. He's averaging 4.2 points this year. Malcolm Brown at 9.3. So that's kind of an idea to get an idea when it comes to ownership. Look at that average, and I think the average, if it's so low for a backfield that has 3 running backs, I think that'll drive his ownership down a little bit. And Cam Akers being 2,000, being more expensive than Malcolm Brown, that might be the sneaky play right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you on this. And I got to take a quick second out here because I have some prop bets on the Braves-Dodgers game.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, of course, the guy that I needed to not get a hit has a hit and an RBI. He's batting in the hole or the nine spot, right? The
Are the
and
Dodgers eliminated yet? Please just say yes.
they're damn close, man. They're
Oh,
down 2-1, fifth inning. They're in
oof.
the fifth. Anyways, back to this. I think we should hop over to wide receiver.
Let's do it.
But yeah, I'm with you, man. I think Cam Akers and Malcolm Brown. I do have one last call out on this. Um, for both sides of this, the only reason, or if for no other reason, if you're questioning whether or not to fade one of these running backs, um, I just have to say, right? I mean, you have three running back backfields on both sides.
It's
Each
crazy.
side
It's
is going to have
crazy.
running backs. So it doesn't make sense to pay up really over 5K for a guy who's going to be splitting carries with three other people.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where I'm at with this. I mean, Raheem Mostert is projected for 14 fantasy points at 9.8K. That's 1.4 fantasy points per dollar, right? If you go to Jerick McKinnon, he's at 4.1 fantasy points per dollar at 2.4K and 9.7 fantasy points. Now,
Yeah.
normally I don't get too crazy into this on Showdown. I stick more to game script, but this is one of those situations where the value is kind of clear. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways,
Exactly. All right, wide receiver. This is another clusterfuck when it comes to San Francisco. Let's talk about a little bit easier of a wide receiver core in the Rams. They've got a good quarterback. This guy can sling the ball. The 49ers, their defense is heavily injured. I don't even know who these guys are. What are your thoughts on wide receiver wise? It looks like Cup and Woods is like a 1A, 1B, you know?
I like Robert Woods. I'll probably go with the Cooper Cup fade this week. Um, I
Well,
mean
Cup
that's
is 9,000. I mean, I'd rather just get Jimmy G.
well, yeah, and again the same concept, right? LA's favored, and Robert Woods seems to be the more versatile player. I mean, they got him getting involved in the rushing game. I don't know. Hey, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. If I got to choose between, oh, a white wide receiver and Robert Woods, I'm gonna go with Robert. Cooper Cup tore his ACL running a route. Robert Woods scored what, three touchdowns rushing last year? You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean,
I don't
it's really
be weird
interesting.
about it, but I
It's
mean, Robert Woods is clearly a better wide receiver. Cooper
it's
Cup is great. Don't get me wrong, but if they're projected anywhere near close and the price discrepancy is what it is, I got to go Robert Woods. Unless there's leverage playing Cooper Cup, like we said in the last two categories.
Yeah, exactly. If Cooper Cup is low owned because he's so priced up, I like Cooper Cup. I mean, it just depends on who's higher owned. I mean,
Yeah,
look at their average. Like I
it,
said, just to get an idea, like these guys might just kind of come in like middle of the road because, maybe they're 40, 50%, 35% owned. I don't know, but like you can't. It's hard to get both of these guys in the lineup just with their price, unless you can go down and get one of those cheaper running backs. I think I'm gonna let the optimizer work this out on the day. I'm not going to be like, all right, I'm going after one of these guys because who knows what's going to happen. We don't like. It's just impossible to predict who's going to have a better game when it comes to these guys.
so here's an interesting build, and I mean, if it's worth it. If you don't know what to do here, honestly, and you don't want to, you don't know which receiver is going to go off. One of this is kind of a safer build, but run a 4-2 stack and fade Jared Goff, jamming Cooper Cup, Robert Woods, Gerald Everett, and I don't know, Cam Akers, and then you have all the offense, right? Then grab Jimmy G and Raheem Mostert because you'll probably be able to afford it.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you have all the San Francisco offense. So there are ways you can kind of get creative to balance that out. You're just going to have to fade somebody. Now, that particular build that I just talked about, I actually might run and see if that's something I could build because I mean, you're going to get leverage fading one of the quarterbacks. I think on Showdowns we're running about 60% are running dual quarterbacks. So you're going to get massive leverage just by fading one of them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I guarantee you, just based on what you just said, not many lineups are going to have Cup and Woods. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to build that way.
So if you have Cup and Woods, I mean, you got to have Goff, right?
No, I don't think so. Because here's the thing, right?
Exactly, and that's what people think. Oh, I have two wide receivers from the same team. I got to throw in the quarterback. Well, what if Woods catches 4 passes for a touchdown and it's a low scoring? Like anything can happen. I don't think you have to jam in a quarterback when you have multiple pass catchers on the team.
Well, like
Probably you should, but like in a lot of cases, he can fail. He can throw for 275 yards.
if you ran the Cleveland Browns a couple weeks ago, you could have tried to stack Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry, and Odell. And while that might have been a decent stack, Baker wouldn't have gotten that many points. You could have ran just Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, and you'd get a receiving touchdown from Odell that was thrown by Jarvis Landry, right? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
again, you could run into weird situations like that. And when you're talking about these two offensive coordinators, I mean, get creative with what you think is going to happen because who knows what they're going to do. Kyle Shanahan could have Raheem Mostert come and play quarterback and Jimmy G playing for Richard Sherman. I have no idea. So, just be prepared for random shit here.
One thing to think about here when it comes to this receiving core for the Rams is Robert Woods does get that rushing upside. I feel like Cooper Kupp gets you the PPR. That's probably why he's higher projected. Less of less of an upside when it comes to big plays. Robert Woods can catch 3 passes for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's very possible, and he's got that rushing upside, which maybe he gets 2 or 3 carries a game, but one reverse for 40 yards for a wide receiver, that's all you need, man.
Dude, he's a playmaker. They're trying to get him the ball. Right? Cooper Kupp is your reliable. That's the guy you're going to get a first down. Robert Woods is the guy you go to get a play, and that's fine. But this game isn't a 44-point total or 42-point total. It's still only 52, but that means that PPR may not be the way to go. There's probably going to be a big player too. So I'm with you on this one.
Yeah. All right, let's transition over to San Francisco.
All right, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this before you even start talking. So here's going to be one of my sneaky plays on the board, and it's going to be Kendrick Bourne. And I really like him this week.
Look at where he's priced.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm priced there. And look at his targets. 5, 6, 6, 4. His lowest targeted game was last week. And I mean, his fantasy output hasn't been spectacular. It's been fairly consistent.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is Jimmy G knows Kendrick Bourne. He doesn't know Brandon Ayuk, Trent Taylor, Kevin White, Dante Pettis. Dante Pettis might get traded before the game goes, so who knows, And Deebo Samuel, he could get injured talking about the game on Sunday. So, I mean, keep an eye on this. Kendrick Bourne could be in an interesting spot. And once again, if you just look at him and Brandon Ayuk, right, you're getting massive advantage on the fantasy point projection. Why pay $5K for somebody who's going to score 8 points when you can pay $3K for somebody who's going to score 6.5?
Yeah.
And has touchdown upside potential. Brandon Ayuk is still he's still kind of an unknown, right? He's got the rushing upside. He's got 4 attempts so far this season, and he's getting pretty decent target rates. But
bro, are you on AOL or Instant Messenger? Are you getting?
Bro, I don't know how to turn off.
I know you're a Microsoft guy, but Jiminy Christmas, bro.
All right.
All right. Let me talk about Kendrick Bourne here. Let's look at what he's got going on. He had 11 fantasy points last week, which is nothing to write home about, but 4 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets, 5 targets. At $3,200, I think that's a great value because if one of those targets turns into a touchdown, if he breaks a tackle, I mean He got 30, 33, 63, 67, 34. He's got a reasonably high floor. I mean, I wouldn't call it high, but like, 6, 7 points is his floor. At $3,200, if you throw him in and if he has low ownership, if he's sub 20%, I think he's an amazing play because, like you said, he's got a rapport with Jimmy G, and he has a high floor. His ceiling is not as high as Ayuk or Samuel, but if he scores 21 points at $3,200, you could afford to get the guys you really want that are more expensive, because there are some expensive guys this week. Let's move on to tight end, unless you have anything else on wide receiver.
No, I don't have anything on wide receiver, but I do have some pretty sweet builds here. So just based on kind of the notes that we take while you transition to tight end. So this is probably more cash game playable. But if you run George Kittle at the captain and then you jam in Cam Akers and Kendrick Bourne, you can throw in Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, and Robert Woods.
Wow, that's pretty nice.
You still have 400 in salary left over to mess around with stuff.
That's good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I kind of like that build.
I mean, if you're going to play Kittle, which we'll get into our captain picks here in a minute for taking a stand. If you're going to play Kittle, you got to get different in two spots, in my opinion. You're going to have the highest owned captain. It could be the situation where you fade both quarterbacks. Could be a situation where you take two of the backup running backs from the Rams. Whatever it is, it's not going to seem like a optimal build, but don't play Kittle, both quarterbacks, the other two highest owned guys. Obviously, it's going to be the optimal lineup. But if you're playing Kittle, if you're playing Goff in the captain, you got to do I wouldn't call them punts, but you have to get really different with your roster construction by playing two running backs from the same team, a couple high-priced wide receivers from the same team, a defense and a quarterback from the opposite team, things like that. It seems like you're drinking when you're building, but you need to think of different ways to build, because if you tie for first, we keep talking about it, there's no point in playing. You might as well just throw your money away. There's no point, because if that is the week where you hit first place and you barely break even, we all know it's very difficult to get multiple first places close together. So you want the week that you hit first place to be a low duped week. Anyways, I'll stop the rant on that. Let's go to tight end. So why is Tyler Higbee 6,800?
I
know he's had some rough weeks. I get it. But this guy can go off. He is the ultimate tournament play. Look at that, 28 points, and then a bunch of dog shit. Does he suck, and he got lucky, or is he just having a couple bad weeks because he's got three other wide receivers that can catch the ball?
I like Tyler Higbee. So George Kittle is the most obvious captain play on the slate. I think. Higbee. I'll be honest. I think ownership will move towards him when we get some updates here. I don't think he's that much of a secret anymore.
Yeah.
But hopefully he goes a little unknown, because I do like him. Now I don't know how much Higbee and Kittle all get in the same lineup, just because it seems this might just be bias. I don't know, but it just seems like running two tight ends seems too negatively correlated.
I agree. I think that's where I sort of put my line in the sand. I don't know that I would ever want Higbee and Everett in the same lineup, but I mean, maybe I'll have one lineup that does that. But if you look at their snaps from just the season in general, it's usually Tyler Higbee around 80%. It's usually Gerald Everett around 40%. Now, week 4, Gerald Everett got 60% of snaps to Tyler Higbee's 85%, which week 4 was against the Giants. That's a 17-9 score, so maybe they were running a lot of two tight end packages. Who knows? But I think you got to choose one or the other, and depending on where the ownership comes in, let's look at Everett. I mean, Everett's 4,600. I mean, he's not projecting well, so the optimizers aren't going to love him. Let me actually look at how many lineups he's popping in when I did 500 lineups. The dude's not in one single lineup out of 500 lineups.
Yeah, I don't have him either.
That's your play. If you're gonna go contrarian at tight end, you just pick Everett because this dude can. He's proven. It's not like we're going. I don't know. Name a tight end on a showdown slate that is like a second or third string tight end. Jeff Swaim.
Nope.
Jeff Swaim. Like it's not like we're going Jeff Swaim. Like
Hey, yeah, Jeff Swaim guy. Hey man,
yeah.
no, seriously, I do want to call that out. That wasn't a bad play. Like,
No, it wasn't a bad play. I'm just saying the probability of Gerald Everett catching a touchdown pass is not low. I think that he's on the field enough that
it's
the
not
ball.
a 150 max play.
What's that?
I don't think it's it's not. It's not a 150 max, right? It's a range of outcomes I would expect to be varying enough to land you a decent spot in a 20 max GPP.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you can have two lineups. You can have 2 or 3 lineups with Everett, and if you're ballsy, you can have more. But I would not lose sleep that night if he got a 0 and I had him in half my lineups because he just grades out well. And if his ownership is around 10 or under 20%, I'll play him in half my lineups. Why not?
Get leverage on the field, man.
So we don't even really need to talk much more about Kittle. He's the obvious play. He's going to be the highest owned. You don't need to have a math degree or you don't need to be an expert on football to know that he's going to be the highest owned. It's just obvious.
Agreed.
So kicker and defense, I don't fucking know. Every week, I don't fucking know.
Kicker, I'm going to say Robbie Gould's in play this week just because of the question marks on the offense. I don't know. And the question marks on the defense, too. I don't know how much of a rhythm the offense is going to be able to get into if the Rams establish a run from the get-go, right? If they're running – if the Niners have 1 3 and out and the Rams run 2 back-to-back drives that take 14 minutes off the clock – I don't know if Jimmy G is going to be able to get enough rhythm to do anything. So they might just drive down the field a little bit and nickel and dime here and there and then have to kick field goals. So I think it's whoa, what the hell just happened? Why did I end up with 100% 49ers in my builds?
You fucked something up.
Yeah, 100% defense? What, are you crazy? 100% injured defense. Like they're missing both their ends. They don't have Solomon Thomas and they don't have Nick Bosa. Like, that's a big deal, man. That outside is so wide open. If the Rams come in here and run any kind of zone run, Cam Akers, Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, like, dude, you're right on with the running backs. They could just have a field day. There is no defensive end on this team. Let's put it this way. I saw rumors on Twitter that they were willing to trade Dante Pettis to the Philadelphia Eagles for like a 4-string defensive end so they can try and bring in some help, right? That's how serious the situation is.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting rid of those defenses actually made my builds. So I got rid of the kickers and the defenses just to see what the optimal builds were. This is starting to give me some pretty nice stuff. But yeah, man, I think Robbie Gould's in play just because I don't know how much of a rhythm Jimmy G is going to be able to get into. The kicker on the Rams side, Samwise Gamgee, I don't know what's going to go on with him. I'm not playing him.
I'm gonna let the opto figure it out. I'm gonna sort. I'm gonna crunch. I'm gonna sort in Excel, and if he shows up, he shows up. I'm not looking for this guy, and if he's in more than 3 of my lineups, I might have to rethink my process.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, dude. Don't even do that because I've been saying the same thing about kickers. That's the one thing that I've been kind of ambiguous on when it came to, or slightly incorrect when it comes to these showdowns. Each night, so far the last like 3 videos we've done, the winner has had a kicker in the lineup, and I've been fading kickers and defenses.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean, I'm not actively searching for them because as soon as I do, both kickers will score 0 points. I know that's how it works. But if they show up, like the other night, I had like out of 20 lineups, I had 1 kicker in 7 lineups, and it it's a little worrisome, but like you never know. A dude hits 2 50-yard field goals in a low-scoring game. That's the
Did you have the
opto.
right kicker?
I think I did. Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah,
And
as long as you're the right kicker, man. That's
yeah.
all that matters.
All
Can
right.
we get
So
a Ravens Justin Tucker slate
I
because that's
know
an easy choice.
that's easy. That's easy. Exactly. Or Greg the Leg.
Right.
Well, actually, wait. Is he on
Yeah.
Dallas now? He's on Dallas now, right? We are
Yeah.
getting
So
that. All right.
who's Megatron? Which one was that? Anyways, never mind.
All right. So at a 500 lineups based on projections on a Thursday night at 8:26, I'm getting 0 defenses in my lineups. So I
Bro,
know I know you have a little bit different on your side of things. You're using a different optimizer. What does your defense look like when it comes to optimized?
so it gave me Jesus. It gave me 19% 49ers and then 11% Rams.
Oh, you know what? You know why I didn't get any?
Hmm.
This is a nice little option that you guys should all look at if you have Fantasy Cruncher. If you don't pay attention, offensive players versus defense, you got to select that. Anyways, that's why I have no defense right now. So that changes everything. And I've done that a few times. And I'm like, why the hell don't I have any defense? And I have to go re in and crunch a bunch. So anyways,
So first of all, to anybody who's watching that has anything to do with optimizers, if you guys can just go ahead and do us a favor and build a separate list of rules for showdowns, that'd be great.
yeah.
I literally just want a box where I can type in how I want 2 total running backs. But
Yeah,
anyways,
exactly. Yeah. We have a couple ideas. Yeah, we'll talk about that another time. But yeah.
yeah. So look, when it comes to the defenses, I do want to point something out. I think the Rams are an interesting play. We've talked about it this whole show. I don't think the 49ers are going to score more than I don't know, they could put up 24 points. But you know who had 3 sacks last week?
Who?
Aaron Donald.
Oh yeah, this guy's a fucking dude. He is a professional wrestler. I mean, this guy's nuts.
Bro, he had no sacks coming into that game. Or maybe I'm missing a week or whatever. COVID's done a lot for the bro. I thought the Titans were 4-0, but forgot that they hadn't played in like 7 weeks.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
Which,
messing.
by the way, just to go off on a tangent, if you're an NFL player, aren't you like, yo, fuck practice, bro? Like, let's just have Zoom meetings and let's talk about theory and let's talk about this and that. Let's save our bodies. This team hasn't played and they haven't practiced and they hadn't played in 2 weeks or something, and they went out and absolutely destroyed a top 5 team in the AFC. I don't know if that says more about the Titans or if that says more about the Bills, but either way, I think if you're an NFL player, you got to be like, dude, chill out in the practice.
So I don't want to get too sidetracked here because we're going on a goddamn hour or whatever. But so here's the thing, right? I think these young quarterbacks with these crazy arms. Josh Allen literally had a Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews in the playoffs moment. That's what fucked up the whole game, right? That tip pass, I don't give a shit that it was slightly behind Andre Roberts. I don't care. That's a catchable pass in the NFL, and you're an NFL wide receiver. You need to catch that. That not being an interception changes the whole game. Malcolm Butler not getting that first pick changes the entire game. Josh Allen doesn't have to force passes the entire game if he doesn't throw that pick, right? From that point on, he realized that his wide receivers aren't doing him any favors. It's the same shit that happened to Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. If Mark Andrews doesn't tip that ball into the fucking, I don't even know what is it, the Chiefs? Were they playing the Chiefs? No, they were playing the Titans.
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, they were. Yeah, exactly. There's a
They
theme.
were playing Titans. What the
There's
fuck?
a theme here. Yeah, exactly. That's who knocked him out.
So I mean, those tip passes, those give apparently the Titans a shitload of momentum. But anyways, that's not something you can necessarily account for when you're playing DFS. We like football, guys, so bear with us when we go on tangents.
All right, so I think the defenses are in play. I think the obvious play is the Rams defense, obviously, going against Jimmy G, who maybe hobbled, maybe he, stubs his toe on the first drive, and Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard come in and one's playing halfback and one's playing wide receiver. I don't know, but these guys have their quarterback play is not ideal, so it's obvious to play the opposing team's defense. But if I get a couple 49ers, I mean, look, Jared Goff is no saint. This guy can throw some picks. We can get one fumble for a touchdown. I'm not going to limit. I'm not setting any rules to limit in Showdown. I'm not going to limit how many kickers. I'm not going to limit how many defenses, because if it grades out well, I'm going to play it. So, anyways, let's move on to our fade of the night. All right, here we go. Ellie, let's talk about your fade.
Yeah, I mean, I think all I'd be doing at this point is just beating a dead horse. But yeah, Cooper Kupp. I mean, I'm really only changing this decision if Robert Woods starts to get a shitload of ownership, and that's
Yeah.
where I'm at.
Yeah, exactly. I can't blame you. So it all depends. Look, it all depends on ownership. Obviously, we keep fucking saying that. But as of now, with no ownership projections out, I think Cooper Kupp's price too high. I don't think he has a high enough ceiling. I think Robert Woods has a higher ceiling. I think he can go off. For me, Mostert, I like Mostert if he wasn't so expensive. Did I spell his damn name right? Mostert.
Yeah.
Okay. If he wasn't so expensive, I think he is. Let's see. He's the second. Is he the second highest? No, he's the third highest. I'd rather play 100% Kittle than play any, or than be overweight on Mostert. I think he can go off. It's obviously risky. I'm gonna have a share of him, but I'm gonna be half the field probably on him. With the guys he's got behind him and the fact that it's a timeshare, I don't think you need to play him. So let's move on to taking a stand here. For me, I'm all about Malcolm Brown. I think at that price, it opens up a lot of things for you. It all depends on his ownership. If he's high owned because people are doing the same research we're doing, then I might go a different way. I might go Cam Akers. But as of now, I like Malcolm Brown a lot. I think he has the upside to catch 5-6 passes. He can fall into the end zone a couple times. And because he was highly touted at the beginning of the year and he's sort of fallen off, I think that allows for a recency bias to be negative against him, which will drive the ownership down. What do you think about? Well, first of all, what do you think about Malcolm Brown? On just to second me on this, I know you probably won't have as much as me, but what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think we went into this pretty heavily on the other topic. I'm gonna balance him and Cam Akers out based on the game script builds that I'm using. I like Malcolm Brown, and dude, it's just I get that the upside may not be the same as Darrell Henderson or Raheem Mostert even, but I'm not paying for just upside. I'm paying for consistent opportunities, right? If I'm going to spend 9,800 on one of these guys, I need him to score 20 points. If I'm going to spend 1,800, bro, go out there and just get me 6. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's where
yeah,
I like Malcolm Brown. And if you're going to jam in George Kittle, Jared Goff, I mean, you run Malcolm Brown, you can run the entire offense. Whatever it is, you can get anybody you
yep.
want in
You
there.
can get whoever you want, and if he's a lot of these guys end up at 5% captain ownership or less.
Mhm.
These Cam Akers, these Malcolm Browns, they end up at 5% or less. And if he's at 5% or less, I might just go 50% him, 50% Cam Akers. Like it's
Mike
well
Williams
worth it.
at Showdown the other night was sub 2%,
Mike
right?
Williams,
And
yeah,
what we had a shitload of exposure to him, right?
yeah.
So I mean, yeah, you're right on. You can jam in all those other guys when you're playing the right cheap guy.
So
Um,
Kittle is an obvious captain pick. I think everyone knows that. So when you play him, you're not advocating just to throw the opto in a 100,000 field lineup tournament and just say, "Oh, here we go." How are you going to get different when you go with George Kittle? Let's talk a little bit about that. I know you kind of went into it a little bit, but just summarize what you're talking about.
so I mean, there's a couple ways. If you want to run George Kittle, you can run a couple cheap guys, right? You can get I expect Kendrick Bourne to be fairly low owned, and I expect Cam Akers to be fairly low owned as well. So jamming both those guys in there is going to save you a little bit of money, and it's going to help balance out the exposure. Um, Fading one of the quarterbacks, like you were talking about, is another great way. Um, I mean, to be completely honest, the only reason that I would leave him at captain is if I think he's going to be the highest scoring player on the slate and by a decent amount. If I think he's going to outscore everybody by about 10 points, then I'll leave him at captain because that 1.5 point boost is going to make it impossible to overcome. And that, I mean, it's rare situations you run into that. But again, I need to look into the Rams defense in secondary a little bit more and see how they're covering against side ends.
Yeah.
Now, if you still want to run him in and be different, I don't think you're too bad off running him at captain and doing a 1-5 and just stacking 5 Rams players in there, or even a
Yeah.
2-4. You could run him and Jimmy G or Raheem Mostert if you decide to go that route, and then run a 4 stack on offense. You could even run him and a kicker and then a 4 stack. So there are different options that you can use to get different. Just be creative with it and make sure that it matches a game script.
Absolutely. That brings up a good point. Let's end the show and let's talk a little bit about when you're building. What are some ways that you're actually crunching out your lineups? Obviously, if you're doing 20 lineups, I know a lot of people do this because when I first started, this is what I did. I set some of my exposures, I set some randomness, I crunched 20 lineups. I look through it, I don't like this, I don't like this. I crunch again, and I go, cool. I'm gonna submit this. I'm ready. I'm good. When you're building, what are some things that you're doing differently? And how are you actually finding these 4-2 stacks, 2-4 stacks? Are you manually setting rules just for those builds, finding a couple lineups that you like, figuring out how many of those lineups you actually need? What are you doing when it comes to actually building?
So this is where you and I get a little bit different. One of the things that I do is I really sit on my game script and I think about what I'm trying to build here. So for the most part, I will lock my captain choice, and then I will go either 4-2, 2-4, 5-1, whatever it is, and then I'll build 300 lineups, and I'll go through each one individually and see which one looks the best. Um, I'll favorite all those, export them out, then throw them in the duplicate thing and see where we're at.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's how I build each one of my lineups, right? I want to find out the optimal play based on the stack that I'm trying to build. So if it is a
Totally.
George Kittle, I want an optimal play, and then from there, I want to get a handful of them so I can compare ownership and identify what I like.
Yep.
Um, and for me, that just helps streamline it. So I'm not digging through 700 lineups. I'd rather go through. Well, I still am, but
Yeah.
it's
It's just a
much
different way of doing it.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the generator's not going to spit out that many. It can only build so many with a lock captain. So it kind of limits the amount of opportunities that you have to guess wrong. If that makes sense.
Exactly. Exactly. And I do something similar when it comes to Showdown. I'm only selecting captains that I want to play. And if when it comes to the quarterback like this week with Goff, I don't really want to play Goff in the captain as much. So maybe I limit him to 5% and I crunch out 650 lines with only captains that I'm comfortable playing because I know they have the leverage necessary for me to win first place solo-ish, with 10 or less dupes. Sometimes if you try to go just 0 dupes, it's just a dumb lineup. Obviously that's why no one else is playing it. So I like to crunch out as many as possible because what you're going to do is if you have Goff and you have these high-priced players and high-owned players like potentially Mostert or both the quarterbacks, they're going to eat up most of your captain lineups. And if you don't want them in captain at all, then don't waste them. Just unclick them, crunch out as many as you're comfortable with, sort through it, look through it. Me personally, I don't like to let my biases, after I set my exposures, after I adjust projections, after all of my biases come into play, I like to then separate myself from it and find the best leverage and just find those lines, look at them, make sure they're not stupid, but also not be like, well, I don't like this combination. I don't like this combination, because on Showdown anything can happen. And I'm willing to play dumb lineups with high projections. I'm willing to play negatively correlated plays, like 3 running backs, 2 running backs from one team and a running back from another team. Well, that's kind of stupid because the game scripts don't really call for that. Well, sometimes they do. So I don't want to let my own opinion on things and what I think is going to happen at the end of the process come into play. I'll do that at the beginning of the process when it comes to my projections and all that fun stuff. So anyways, that's just how I like to do things. Everybody has their own process. Everybody does their own thing. Find your own process, use it, and do it every time. Don't change your process every week. Because then how do you know if you're doing it wrong or right? If you lose 100 straight slates and you cash 0 and you did everything the same, well, then change what you're doing. But if you're changing it every week and you're winning sometimes and you're losing sometimes, you'll never know. Anyways, what do you anything to say to lead these guys out? We're over an hour now. What do you have to say to lead us out there, boss?
I got 2 things. First is keep an eye on ownership and line movement. Those are going to be the things that indicate what we're doing. The other thing is maybe we should do a 30-minute podcast on just beginners' mistakes and what not to do, because we fucked up a lot. So anyways, that's
exactly. And to add on to that, we're not fucking experts. We're not millionaires. Like, we are putting in all of our time and effort to learn all this stuff about DFS. So we're learning too, we make mistakes too. We don't have 300K in our bankroll like some people do. We're trying to get there though. So let's have a conversation. Please comment, follow us. Next show, we're going to try to get out for Monday Night Football. We got our Arizona Cardinals versus the Dakless Cowboys. Dakless Cowboys.
Hey, respect, Dak. We love you. I hope you get better.
Dude, that was brutal. That was like some Willis McGahee shit. Anyways.
Hey, the same day Alex Smith comes back, if there's not a fucking jinx in the league, I don't know what to say.
Somebody's writing a script. Anyways, thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate you.
Sorry, Cowboys and Indians? So they got rid of their name. So who gets attacked next? Cowboys. Oh, anyways, sorry. I'm getting a little bit.
Wow, you're getting way deep. All
And
right, guys.
Apologize.
All right, before we go off the rails, we're a couple beers deep. We'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy.